Hello everyone, it's Chris here. This will be a much shorter video than normal, I hope. And it's actually a bit ironic because the book I want to speak to you about is the longest book in the GMJ series. And I've actually got a copy of it here. Let me show you. This is the book I'm talking about today. American Military Might Debunked. And it's a fairly long book. It's over 600 pages. And that's the reason why it's not available in hardcover. Simply because there's a limitation on Amazon. At, I think 550 pages. They cannot do hardcover anymore, and then it's only soft cover. But it's, the usual audio as well as, soft cover and Kindle. I'm not going to explain again why it's not on Apple. You know my views on Apple and San Bernardino and a whole bunch of other incidents where I consider Apple to be a supporter of terrorism. The day that you show a middle finger to a court order and the FBI in being unwilling to assist with a terrorist investigation is the day that I don't even want your products in my books, man. And I don't think Apple is that good to start off. It's actually not better than anything else. It's just overpriced. But the book itself, of course, with a name like that, if you can imagine, has caused a lot of stories, a lot of nonsense. And it even went to Congress. Some of the readers in the US were concerned enough after they read this book. Also, they informed me, and I believe him, that they actually went to the Congress critters and explained to them that, look, there's this book out written by this fellow, and he's saying quite astonishing things about the state of the US military and NATO, and perhaps you people should do something about it. Yeah, well, they assigned it to the waste paper basket, I suppose. I'm here on the third floor, and I'm actually alone here in the building. Rebecca is still in Switzerland, Swineland. And so I'm listening for the cats. They might be hearing my voice and come running up to the third floor, so forgive me if that happens. It's just one of those things. But anyway, so where the book comes from is by that time I've written, I think, 35 books already in the series. And I had amassed quite a bit of information, I would say, intelligence actually, because it's more than information, it's proven. Where I found out that the state of the US military and NATO, and I use the two as the same thing because there's no real difference, is not as good as they want you to think it is. In fact, it's, as far as I'm concerned, a house of cards. There's nothing there which impresses me much. And they will always come out with an argument, yeah, we spent so much money. And what do you get for your money, man? What do you get for your money? It's rubbish. It's just, that's not an argument. I mean, if you sit in a boardroom with me and you flush your MBA knowledge and you cannot even tell me that money which is spent unwisely is rubbish, then you know what? Then I have to think if somebody's actually got you in his pocket, and that's why you're saying such crap. But the fact is, it's still a powerful organization. I mean, let's not make a mistake. I mean, the US military, even though they not a patch on what they used to be in 1991, and it's not only me saying this. If you listen to people like Colonel, I think Douglas McGregor, I think is his name, who was a tank commander in the first Gulf War and a good one. He's quite outspoken, you know. He says straightforward. I mean, this is not the same military anymore. You listen to people from the ex-CIA members, and they will also, they're well known. They're across the internet, and you'll do very well to actually listen to these people speaking. I think Larry Johnson, Phil Girardi, whole bunch of them, you know, and they all say the same thing. You're running a bluff here, and you're really not as good as you think you are. Now, that's exactly which came out in my books. And as I wrote the books, I would, of course, do a lot of research in the background, even if it's fictional. Remember what I said to you in the introduction. You can read every story on its own, yes, but they do follow on each other. And every book is very well researched. If the characters make any type of comment about NATO or NATO weapons or some operation, usually where it failed, and also tradecraft or whatever, history, especially history, you can take that for granted. You can say, well, this is actually what actually happened. Now, of course, with history, there's the truth, and then there's my truth, and there's your truth, and somewhere in the middle might be the truth. It all depends on view. It depends from which way you're looking at it. But I would say you have every reason to be extremely concerned, because you really ain't as good as you think you are. And this is what this book is all about. Is this? I've taken passages from all the books, and there were a lot. There were many, many of these books. I mean, because, it was written as, I think, book 35 or something. But if I would have written book 42 or 46 or whatever, and I found out there's something which I think is so important that it actually needs to go into this book, I would just take that passage and put it in. It's easy these days, because you can change it online, and within an hour or three later, the new version is there. And so it's very possible that people have a book and it's not quite the same as the latest. Well, you know what? What do we do? Do we update it, or do we just leave it? It's one of those questions, a lot of things has come through from the books as well. I do mention that speech which Vladimir Putin actually made, I think in 2018, and he started talking about this new weapons of his, the hypersonics, and then the rest of them, and everybody was just laughing, the Russians, a fuel station with people or whatever, with nuclear arms. I think that was John McCain, the war hawk, the senator, the one who got shot down in Vietnam and spent a lot of time in the Vietnam, Hanoi Hilton, and was quite abused there as well. Having said that, I don't think much of a man as a politician, to be honest. And of course, he's late now. But we do quote him, and we quote him as well as people like, what is that senator from, I think, North Carolina? The one who, as always tell people that he took part in the first Gulf War. And then he came out, he was actually a damn lawyer sitting in the US, not participating in any fighting. He wasn't even outside the US. I think he might have been to Italy. And yet, he's a veteran. A lot of the things is how you say it. And that's why I say in all the JMJ books, you will find in every single one of them, as well as a website, which I removed now because it's not worth my while to keep it open, is that I say it straightforward that George St. James does not claim to have been part of South African Special Forces. End of story. Because many people would read the books and think, wow, perhaps this guy, no, I wasn't. And I'm very honest about it. I don't want people to point fingers at me and say, oh, you pretend to be something, because people will do that. We live in a time where people are really not that nice to each other. I think there's a lot of anger in the world. I see it in myself. There's a lot of anguish, I would say that as well, and a lot of stress. So I would say to you, no, I would never claim things which I'm not. And sadly, not everybody, of course, follow that wise doctrine. So anyway, our book is set out is of course different chapters now. It's a bit different from the normal ones. I think it's only got 5 or 6 chapters. Let me look quickly. I have actually made a few printouts as well. It's a 600-page book. It's not that easy to remember everything you wrote in it at any particular page. It's got 6 chapters. Now, normal JMJ books, most of them, absolutely 99% of them, have only 8 chapters or 9. And the reasons for that is, once again, it's a code. Melissa and myself, before she passed, we were together for 2 years. We actually only spent 8 days together. 8 days and 9 nights is what we spent together, physically, as one. And so when I wrote the books to honor her memory, I make all JMJ books 8 chapters or 9. And so this one is a bit different in that it only has 6. I don't read anything into it. I'm not a occult person, but I do know what 666 in the Bible means. I write about it in a great detail in many books, including Oath of Evil, which is a book I mention basically in every video which I'm talking to you, because that is the one book which I think is actually more important. The rest are very good, and it's nice, and it's good to know about these things, but that is the one which can change your life. It's also, of course, the book which caused me the most harm. You know, friends who start accusing you of things, people who just absolutely hate you because they don't like what you say. But you know what? It's a funny thing. I also end every book with a quote from Martin Luther. And basically, Martin Luther said that when they had him in court and they wanted him to confess his sins. Bible says confess your sins to God, not to humans. Confess your faults to humans. But you know what? Funny enough, they changed the Bible. They changed that word. By chance? No, it's not by chance. No. If you think it's by chance, no, of course not. It's a funny thing. Whenever there's a new Bible version coming out, then there's one deity which is always written out and replaced, and that would be Jesus Christ, always written out. And if he's replaced in these new versions, it's always with Mary, you know. She was such a good woman, and she will have an honorable place in heaven. And yet they've taken a name and they made her something which is not. It is disgusting to witness. So be careful with those things. But I do quote Martin Luther, and I say, and I'm just quoting out of memory now, I say, "Yeah, I stand. I can do no other. So help me God." And that's where I stand. That's how I write the books. I'm not looking for fame. I'm not looking for money. I'm not looking for friends. I'm not looking for anything. But in my heart, I know that I want you. And you can either take my warning seriously or you can reject them. It's immaterial. I can't change it. I can't walk into a pentagon. There's a reason why it's actually built like a pentagon, by the way. It's also a reason where it is built. It's occultic. Once again, if you read Oath of Evil and some of the other books, I definitely explain to you why. I think it's codename Rebecca 65. We go deep into the occult to explain to you how all these things fit together. It's not by chance. It's not by chance that it's a pentagon. I mean, yeah, I laugh now because the other day I saw a video and they were asking all these college graduates. One of them was actually a teacher. The other one was studying medicine, and another one was studying something. And we're standing there on the beach, and I asked them, so how many corners does a pentagon has? I didn't know. I thought it was 4, perhaps 3. It's amazing, It is like a double-struck which we always had at school. Or I had it anyway. Where was the Treaty of Versailles signed? Versailles? No. You see, that's the historical answer. But from a legal viewpoint, at the bottom of a treaty. See what I mean? It is just plain stupid. But anyway, in the book, I've put all these things together. I would grab something from a book and just put it down. And the first chapter I write in the book, in this one, American Military Might Debunked, was perception. In fact, I found it so very, very important that I said perception. That's the name of a chapter. Because it's all about perception. As long as you can walk around like Donald J. Trump and you can shout at people and type your nonsense on social truth or whatever the thing is called, and you can threaten the world, and the world believe you can actually do that, you'll get away with it, of course. Because, you're like the big guy at the schoolyard. I'm going to murder everybody. And, he frightens people into believing that. That is why he said that about 70 countries came to lick his ass. Wow, that's presidential, ain't it? That's the leader of a free world, gentlemen. But 70 countries are going to come and lick my ass. Certainly China ain't one of them. And certainly China doesn't really trade with the US. It's a minuscule part of the overall trade. And China is just growing stronger and stronger, and you are getting weaker and weaker, so they're laughing at you. But the small nations, of course, cannot afford that. They have to go and lick his ass. Wow. That's graphic, man. It's like my father said to me once, do you realize how bad it is to call somebody a fart? A pig. Have you seen a pig? Have you seen how a pig lives? Have you smelled a pig before? Of course, he came from a Jewish family, so he had some problems with pork. But anyway, you know what I mean. Perception is everything in war. If you can, classic example for us, and there's probably a video coming out on it because we are making videos on legacy on the G5, G6, and the multiple rocket launchers, Valkyries, those things. And I understand, and what they're telling me is that about 1989, the Cuban 50th Division decided they want to come down south. And so there's the well-known thing of, I think, Paqueta. I still want to talk to his bodyguards. I want to know exactly what he did to his wife who died after falling downstairs. Yes, I actually spoke to a few of them off the record. That's why I'm a bit sarcastic. She fell down the stairs. Of course, we believe that. Like Evia de Klerk's wife were killed in just a random attack by a security guard. Yeah, perhaps. Perhaps not. We don't know. We don't know. There I actually have faith that it was like that with Bookbook 505. I don't think that's the truth. But it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. But you'll all remember that Pickwater was then saying something like, oh, you know what, we'll call up another 2,000 men and we'll send them to you. Bravado, perception. We're going to do this. We're going to show you, we're going to show you. In fact, in the background, something more serious was happening. The South Africans were spreading a word around that they have several regiments of G5 cannon waiting. Now, the G5 was very effective. That's what comes out in the legacy videos. It's also in the books. There is one book where we actually work with a G6 and Patelier, or Valkyrie. I'm not sure which book it is. I think it's codenamed Annika, but I'm not too sure anymore. We'll get to the video. Because I wanted to show the world how the system works. But the G6, they tell me actually I have no combat experience whatsoever. That will still come out in the videos on Legacy. It did participate in some operations, but it shot a few shots and he went up. And then it went to the export market. That's fascinating. I never knew that. But they were spreading the word that they are doing that. They are getting all these regiments together, which they don't have. Actually, never had so many of them. Secondly, they said they're going to call up 400,000 men and put them down there on the border. We never had more than 5,000 people, 3,500 at any given stage. And the Cubans were sitting there with 50,000, of which about 49,955 were cowards who would run away if they smell a South African close by. Yeah. For you people who don't know, and it's quoted in the GMJ books, this one too, Ketu Carnival. Go and listen a little bit what the American Secretary of State had to say about that battle. He does not go over well for the Cubans. No, doesn't. So anyway, the other thing which the South Africans were saying is that we will arm our nuclear weapons. Now, I asked during this conversations with Pierre Franken, who was a 3rd Battalion support commander in artillery support group, and I also asked Koos, or Major General Koos Bom Lobsher, who was basically the father of the G5. Last year, the G5 could actually shoot an atomic weapon. Is it possible to shoot 155mm with atomic warhead? It's totally possible, but we didn't have it. We do know the Israelis have it. There's no doubt. I wrote about it in a book called Codename Angel. We'll get to that book too, because that thing is actually based on something which did happen. Now, we informed the world basically we have a nukes and we're going to use it. If the Cubans dare to conquer south over that border in a conventional way, we're going to sort them out. Now, it's fascinating because this is also mentioned in the books as well as this one, is if you look at the history of war, you will find out that very much the same tactic we used in North Korea attacking South Korea. Then they used the very same tactic with North Vietnam attacking South Vietnam. Then came Rhodesia, and they used exactly the same method once again with Zipra trying to cross close to Victoria Falls. One of our guests, Tony Bellinger from Fighting Men of Rhodesia, was actually the officer commanding there. And so he speaks in that episode about what happened there. And now in 89, roundabout there, we have the same story. Which is one of the reasons why I actually wrote the JMJ books, is because I was starting to think that these terrorists, these jihadis, and then the other ones are actually being controlled from a same source, same person, same instance. There was something, they were using the same methods. It just, yes, of course you can go and plant a car bomb somewhere, but and all terrorist groups do that, or hijack an aircraft. Yeah, I understand. I hear you. But this was more than that. This was like, there's a plan behind this. It doesn't just happen. So anyway, it's all about perception. And one of the things I mentioned is that I cringe. And then I start laughing whenever I hear US presidents stand up and say, I'm the most powerful man in the world. You know, me. No, you ain't. No, you ain't. If you read this book and others, you will actually find out that the Russians has more nukes than you. Yeah. And guess what? They can deliver these nukes, and you have no defense against them. Nothing. We've seen that in Ukraine. Your Patriot doesn't work. It's not good. It's pathetic. Do you know about the Patriot missile system? You know, in the first Gulf War, it was so, the Patriots, that was just a thing, you know, and they were based in Israel, and they would shoot down the Scud missiles coming from Iraq. Yeah. Then, of course, the US went crazy about it, you know, the Western press. Like, oh, this is a wonder weapon. Wunderwaffe. Reminds me of Hitler, actually, you know, same desperation. And so, well, in the middle 90s, the Israelis came out with a report which came down about 10 years ago. And it said that the Patriots didn't shoot down any Scud missiles. They failed every single time. They say there might be one, but they don't think so, actually. In fact, nothing. So, against this type of things and hypersonic weapons, as we sit here today, and the West don't even have them, you know what? There's no defense. Those nukes will get through, and they will destroy you. Will yours get through too? Probably, yeah. But your problem is as follows. Russia is a very, very large country. Europe is not. US is a very large country, but it's got big cities. Lots of them. China, very big place. They might survive us. Will they survive the nuclear fallout, the nuclear winter? No, I don't think so. I don't think so. And I don't really think such a thing will happen anyway, because the Bible doesn't talk about the world ending like that. So for me, that is just, again, it's perception and it's bullshit. But at the end of the day, is those weapons are there. And no, the US, you ain't as great as you think you are. Sorry to break your bubble. Perhaps you should read this book and other books. Listen to people like Conor McGregor. Listen to the people I've mentioned. They will tell you things which you don't know, but you ought to know. And then perhaps you will stop this thing. But then, if you look at it, they always attack a small nation. And the way they attack a small nation is always the same. What they do is they will build up their forces in a nearby country, which is why the story of Iran is bullshit. They're not building up their forces. Of course, I'm making this video now in the beginning of May 2025. I don't know when you see it, might have changed. Perhaps I'm wrong. I don't know. But the way I see it, as I said here today, unless you build up massive forces, which you ain't got, since you only have an army of about 458,000 men and women. Put that in perspective, even the Indian army, which I rate highly, even they have more than 1 million men on the arms. Russia has more than 1 million men on the arms. China has more than 1 million men on the arms. You're nothing. You're a joke. People can see you. The perception is out there. You're nothing. And you will run away. As soon as you have some casualties, you're gonna run, man. Like you ran out of Afghanistan, like you ran out of Iraq. You run. Where didn't you run away? Tell me. Somalia. Oh, you ran away there too. You know. I don't know why a country like Australia want to actually sign up with you and go on to your protective wing. How are you going to protect them? You ain't got the military to protect them, mate. You don't have it anymore. You used to. There was a time. There was a time when we looked up to the US before it became a second beast of the Bible. But now, really? Really? The fact is you don't have it anymore. And that's what this book is telling you. And you can get as angry as you wish with me. You can start giving bad reviews. You can do whatever the hell you want. I don't care. The facts are there. At the end of the day, the facts are there. So this perception is just bloody nonsense. And then we also look at Hilarious Clinton, as I call her, the Secretary of What State, who traveled more than anybody else. Now, Hilarious, came up with great ideas, which is so stupid that it will go down in history as beyond belief. It is beyond belief, actually, the leaders of a free world. And it ain't free anymore. You cannot even say anything negative in the UK these days. You cannot even post something which you read somewhere or just forward it to a mate of yours because they will arrest you. Yeah, that's freedom of speech, man. Yeah. No, it ain't. No, it ain't. No, it's not. It's not normal. It reminds me of a lobster which is being boiled, or a frog. It's a dreadful thing. I don't know why people would do that, but anyway, it's happening so slowly that people are not waking up to it. They're not waking up to what's actually happening, and by the time you wake up, it's going to be too late. Which is also the warnings in these books. But anyway, we talk about Hilarious and the death of Colonel Gaddafi. Now that's interesting. We don't really speak to the intelligence people on Legacy. I'm hoping that we will speak to them on this show more. They don't really want to be on Legacy Conversations. Now, for you who don't know what Legacy Conversations, it's another channel I have. It's 1,000 times bigger than this one. And that's where we speak to South African military veterans as well as police veterans, intelligence people on all sides to find out how it went for them with our own wars and struggles and problems we had there. Now, they don't really want to speak on that show, and I understand why. Because we have a government in South Africa who's still wanting to arrest people for things that I think happened at 40, 50, 60 years ago. And it's not actually about finding these people guilty. No, this is about breaking them financially. Because what will happen is the guy has to defend himself in court. There ain't nobody in the middle class who's got enough money for lawyers, attorneys. Ask me, I was one. You can't afford me. You just don't have the money to afford me. And so what they do is they just break these people, and they're elderly now, and they're not in good health. They're just trying to humiliate them and to get them to confess, and then perhaps they will be nice to them. They probably won't, but that's why they don't want to speak. So we will never probably know the truth and nothing but the truth. And if you're sitting here and you think that crimes were not committed by these freedom fighters and struggle people who's now in parliament, I've got a word for you. Two words. Two words. Quattro, camp, and Gola. Three words, actually, huh? Go and search it, research it a bit, or read my books. I talk about Quattro Camp. I know about the torture there. I know about what was happening. It was like a camp for dissidents. In other words, if they think he's a police spy or has done something to them, or perhaps if people didn't want to sleep with a cadre commander or whatever, then go in here, treated worse than animals. You cannot believe how bad these people were treated. It's it's one of those things which were just it's okay. It was just blown away, It was like we don't want to talk about that, To the victories or spoils. Even if a victor has lost every battle he ever entered into. But that doesn't matter. It's still perception, ain't it? Perception is all it is. And so it was hilarious with Gaddafi. Now there's a story there because there was apparently a South African actress, English-speaking woman. I never found her attractive, but I don't like blondes. And she was involved on behalf of the old intelligence service with a Libyan intelligence officer. And then she met him in, I think, Gaborone, which is in Botswana. And they were in a motel or a hotel, and they were being recorded. And then they have to find out that she actually confessed to him that she's working as a spy, I suppose. Pat on her back. This, by the way, is revealed in one of a few books which I wrote. So it's not me saying it first. But I know about the case. And he was very, very good with it. He listened, he was very considering, and he didn't even go back to South Africa. He just went back to Libya. Professional guy. Now, Gaddafi, once again, his perception, where you come from. You think he's a terrorist, or you think he was a good leader? What do you think? Depends on where you stand. Now, by the time that Gaddafi was murdered, he was actually a Western spy. He was an informant. He was informing on Al Qaeda. And how do we know this? Well, it's in the book as well, several books, where he was actually speaking to Tony Blair, who only won one engagement, one war in his entire life. That's in Sierra Leone, where I think Neil Ellis saved his ass. Now, there's a video on that coming out too. I'll put it for you here. I don't know, perhaps it's been out by the time you see it, I'm not sure. But the point of the matter is that Gaddafi was warning. He was warning that these jihadis actually want to capture a ship and sink it somewhere in the Suez Channel, or they want to see if they can take over a passenger liner. There's a lot of it in the Mediterranean. I wrote a book about that, Codename Caribbean. Go and look at it, where I tell you these things, link it to a Mumbai terrorism incident. And at that stage, he also got something like $100 million from the US Under Secretary of State, Hillary Clinton. So he was a Western asset now. Asset is a better word than a spy. But I use the language which you people understand. And despite that, the West decided to launch a counter-revolution against him. So they did. Fighting broke out. Then they spread the lie. Total lie. No truth in it. Nothing. Never happened. No bullshit. No. But they said the Libyan Air Force is bombing civilians. Oh, they are scared that the Libyan Air Force are bombing civilians. And so they attacked Libya. The French attacked first. Obama was really annoyed by that. In fact, he admitted later that Libya was his biggest mistake. Well, I don't think he made a mistake. I think it was on purpose. But anyway, whatever. So at the end of the day, Libya today has slave markets. Yes, slave markets. African people are basically taken and auctioned off. Yeah, yeah. Home goal, huh? Home goal. And of course, the rest of Europe, Western Europe, is flooded with Libyans fleeing. Africa's most prosperous, is that the word, richest nation, gone. Gone. What did you get from me? Tell me. Nothing. No, you got nothing. No. People died, but we sit in Washington. What do we care about people dying by Africans? Or by Arabs? They don't look like us. And then Gaddafi tried to escape. So he had two convoys. It was his son in one convoy, he in another convoy. And he was bloody stupid because he didn't move. He didn't move as quickly as he should. He stopped at villages and he would talk to people instead of just flipping moving, getting out of the country. And it was the RAF, they say, who actually picked him up with one of their Tornado fighter bombers, useless aircraft. I describe it in some of the books. Shame. Oh, shame. They had to, in the Gulf Wars, they used them to first attack to see if they can take out the radar and SAM sites. I think after 2 or 3 days they had to withdraw them because, hello, it's not Vietnam anymore. Going low and fast and straight doesn't work. Doesn't work. So anyway, so they spotted it in a US operated drone, got involved. A lot of the convoy got wiped out. Gaddafi himself was wounded, and then the opposition arrived. So basically what happened is US and NATO air power kept that convoy at a certain place, waited for the other groups to arrive, the opposition, and they murdered Gaddafi. How did they murder him? Well, there's videos on that, the usual beatings, humiliations. But then they took a bayonet and they sodomized him with it until he died. Yeah. Then they hanged his body. Yeah. With his son, hanged it in public. Which is against Muslim rights, by the way. You're supposed to bury immediately. Did that happen in history? Yeah, absolutely. Go and look what happened to Mussolini and his mistress. Same story, same people involved. Isn't that funny? Same people involved. And guess what? When Hilarious came and she sat there at the interview and she says, we came, he saw, he died. He said something like that. And then she cracked off. And the woman was doing the interview. He's also, guys, I think most of you are standing here listening to me now has killed somebody somewhere in action. I think most of you have actually, if you haven't done that, you've actually seen the dead. You know that after the gladness of just having done your job properly and surviving the fight, there are times where you look back and you think that these people might actually have had a Bible in their pocket, as we found so many times. They might have had a mom and dad. Well, they must have, perhaps a sister. I've spoken to some intelligence people who had to read the letters they got from loved ones, things like that. The point I'm trying to make to you is, you just don't do such things. It's like licking my ass. You know what? Perception? No, you're an ass. Your perception is one of the second beasts of the Bible. That's all perception we have. Then we go further in chapter 2 and we look at naval myths. Now here you have to look at the video which I made on Codename Lucy. And that's where I say to you that the US Navy is not as good as you think they are or is. Why not? Because you don't have ships, you don't have manpower, and what you have is old and it's overused. It ain't as good as you think you are. In fact, you don't have carrier battle groups anymore. It's in the book. You now have carrier strike groups. Now you may say to me, Chris, so what? It's still a carrier. No, there's a huge difference. One is fairly large and the other one is fairly small. But it's fairly small these days because you ain't got the manpower and you ain't got the ships and you ain't got the aircraft. Your F-18s do not have a range to get to a place like China. Why not? because the Chinese have their missiles. I think the DF-6 or something. They will sink you long before you get into range. You do not have a range to fly there, launch your missiles or drop your bombs or do whatever you think you're going to do and come back. It's the same as I started explaining a little bit earlier. You arrive at a place, you build up your forces, the aircraft go in, they bomb the hell out of everything for a week or 3 or months, and then your army goes in and it's like, oh, no, we're just riding to victory. Yeah, you saw your asses. You saw your asses. Because it's not difficult to conquer a small nation like Iraq. It's nothing to conquer a nation like Afghanistan. And then you have to deal with a population who doesn't like you. And then what you're going to do? Tell me what happens afterwards. You can't, because you don't think that far. You don't have a general with the strategic capabilities to think further than his nose and to think in what directorship is he going to get once he leaves the army. How is it possible that these people leave the army and well, they've worked hard for 30, 35 years, 40 years. They've got a house somewhere, they've got a car somewhere, and woof, within 2, 3 years, they're worth multi-millions of dollars. Yeah? How did that happen? How did that happen? How is it possible? It's possible because it's the American system. It's an open door evolving system, which we talk about in this book as well. It is bad. It is extremely bad because it means that you will not get the weapons you deserve and that you need. It means you're going to get whatever crap the general can sell, which means that it's going to be overpriced, which means you cannot manufacture these things on a great scale. I mean, like in the Second World War, the US was fantastic. Do you know that in 3 years we actually built 121 aircraft carriers? Huh? But not all of them were fleet carriers. Some of them were just to ferry aircraft around. Some of them were much smaller, blah, blah, blah. But they built them. These Liberty ships, they built them every 3 days. Once they built one, really, less than a week, they built the entire ship. And then it stopped. And the UK, which used to have all this massive shipbuilding capacity, has closed their last shipbuilders is down now. It doesn't exist anymore. I think Wolf and Hart, or what once built the Titanic, don't exist anymore. It's closed down. Shame. As I say to you in other videos, China has 258 times the capacity to build ships than you. Yeah, 258 times. You don't have the skills. You see, that's the other damn problem now. Now the shipyard closed. Right? These guys go and do something else. Now 20, 30 years has gone past. Now what? There's no young generation who took over. Now the old guys can't do this anymore. Now you have to do what? You don't have the skills anymore. You don't have it. That is why the Navy actually has to, because they don't have people and they don't get new ships in, they have to reduce themselves even further. So what they do now is they start bullshitting with figures like they always do. And what does that help you? It's really, the time has come to stop living in a dream world, in a bubble in Washington, and wake up to reality. So we have a lot to say about naval myths as well. And then we started talking about the Air Force. And man, that's interesting because in the first place, you ain't got stealth aircraft, right? Your F-22 and your F-35 is not stealth. Huh? No. I explained to you in other videos, and it's in the book, and in other books as well. Why in other books? Simply because, guys, I want the message to get out. I can't take the chance that out of the 54 books, you will go and perhaps read this one. And now what is not in this one you don't know about. I can't do that. I have to put it in different books. Because there ain't no one of you here who is going to read all 54 books. And if you read all 54 books, man, let me know. I will definitely give you something for free. Because I don't know about anybody except myself who's done that. But the point I'm trying to make is we have to spread the word. So it's very, very important. But I wrote a book called Codename Jen. Now, Jen refers to Melissa's sister. Melissa was my wife. She's the one who died. Well, there were 2 who died, actually, but this is the one I speak about the most. And Melissa was one day very, very angry. And she said to me she found out something and she doesn't know what to do. And I said, don't tell me. Unless I need to know, I don't want to know. But I found out anyway, not through her, I found out through some other ways. What basically happened is, they have these red flag and Top Gun things going on in exercises. That's where they have the aggressor squadron, which flies against, say, the F-14 or the Phantom in the old days, the F-18s, the F-16s, and today the F-35s, but as we know, the F-35 cannot dogfight. Shame. It lost every single engagement against an F-16. And then they said, yeah, but it wasn't optimized for dogfighting. And besides, you know what? It won't actually get to a dogfight because we have BVR. We have Beyond Visual Range missiles. Go and read Codename Blue Tang, which is a fighter aircraft book. And then come and talk to me again. BVR might work. It was first used in Africa, by the way. I think it was Pakistani pilots, mercenaries who fired it. I think in Eritrea or one of those small little wars nobody heard about. And they actually worked. We know that India, with MiG-21, took on an F-16 of a Pakistani Air Force. They shot it down with a BVR. MiG-21 was shot down too. But the fact of the matter is that the F-35 cannot dogfight. And then they forgot to put a gun on it, like a cannon. Did the same thing in Vietnam, actually. The Phantom, Air Force Phantoms, McDonnell Douglas Phantom II, it had no internal gun. The Navy once had. Oh, shame. So we had to put one on the center fuselage. Wasn't as good. 20 millimeter. You would think that people would actually remember this, not make the same mistake. No, same mistake. Didn't put it on the F-35. It's a joke. It's a total joke. For an aircraft, it's a joke. And then it came out that they were falsifying their scores. Yeah, absolutely. Now, if you read some other books, and this one too, you will find out that after South Vietnam fell, about 48 brand new Tiger II aircraft were actually found under the South Vietnamese Air Force. Some of them were still in crates where they were built, and many of these actually went to Russia or the Soviet Union. And there they tested them. And they worked out exactly how to fly. Now, in Codename Zen, one of the pilots there, one of the characters, but it's based upon what a pilot told me, a fighter pilot, said to me, or in the book anyway, say that there were no real difference between the Tiger II and F-16, the earlier models. It's very good aircraft. And so what happened was the Soviets had their own aggressor squadrons and their own red flags and Top Guns, and they worked out exactly how to fly certain envelopes where you can defeat the Western aircraft. But do you know they never actually told their Arab clients how to do that? And so the Israelis got away with it. Why didn't they tell them? Because we were keeping that as a surprise. It also came out in Blue Tang, and it's in this book, of course, because you grab it from different books, is that the West in NATO never had air superiority in the 1980s in Western Europe. Never. Why not? Well, you have to read the book with the South African connection with the Kukri missile system. Then they had to find out after the West Germany and Eastern Germany air forces combined, they had to find out that the Soviet missiles air-to-air is 8 times better. Not 8%, 800%. 8 times. 8 times better. In Vietnam, I was shooting these air-to-air missiles by Yanks, the Americans now. And they would, 92 times out of 100, they would miss the target. 92 out of 100. You cannot tell me that's good enough. The books are full of these type of statistics which you cannot argue about. Do I say this because I enjoy it? No. I say it with great sadness in me. It's sad to me to see what happened to the US. It's sad to me when I read a Northwestern University report that says it's nothing but a oligarchy. What do you call that word? Oil. I can't even say the word in English. I'll type it in here. But it comes down that the US has the same system as you would find in Saudi and wherever. You've got a few powerful families controlling the newspapers, the social media, and it's a very strange thing that all US presidents relates to one royal family. Why is that? Charlemagne. Why is that? Because he rescued the Pope in the 14th century. Is that why? I don't know. Go and read Oath of Evil. You'll find many things you don't know. Anyway, they were falsifying their scores, and they thought they were these super hot dog fighters, they all Tom Cruises, Top Gun, Yeah, really? You came to South Africa with your F-15 Strike Eagles, and guess what? You lost. Yeah, exercises. You lost against the cheetah. There's episodes coming on that on Legacy 2. Then the Belgians are out with the F-16s. Yes, B models, not D. You lost. You lost those engagements too. Oh, shame. Against the African Air Force. Now you want to take on a big Air Force like the Chinese? Do you even know? Comes out in this book, other books too. Chinese fighter pilots in the elite squadrons actually fly more in 1 month, something like 150 hours, than that the average US fighter pilot flies in a year. And now I'm not even talking about the RAF, who doesn't have any pilots. Guys, it was so shocking to me what I discovered and what I found out and what people were telling me. And then I would go and research and I would find out. And I said to myself, I have to bring this out. I have to put it in books. I have to warn. I don't want to learn to speak Chinese. I don't want to learn to speak Russian. Even though I have great sympathy with those countries, I really like them a lot more than I like the second beast of the Bible. But that doesn't matter. I know there's good people out there in that country as well, and even in Western Europe, by which I exclude actually Swineland. There's no good people there. But I don't want to see harm coming to them. But they're on this road of, man, we're just the best. There ain't nothing better than us. We will tell you, we will show you. You have to lose that attitude. I'm telling you, you're going to lose that war. You ain't as good as you think you are. And these books are proving it to you. And then in chapter 4, we talk about army myths, and oh, shame. So everybody will talk to you about the Abrams tank. Now, this was written, of course, before Ukraine, where the Abrams tanks, every single one of them almost by now was destroyed. And then everybody will say to me, oh, yeah, but because it was a downgraded version. You have to understand, man, it's not the real one. It was destroyed easily. There's a South African connection. It's called the Mokopap missile, technology-wise, anyway. We talk about that. I think codename Alphabet 32. There's a video out on that. Perhaps go and look at it. But do you know that before the Ukraine-Russia war, which was brought to you by NATO expanding east, there's facts. You lost a whole bunch of Abrams. Yeah, you lost a whole bunch of them. They were shot out in Iraq. Yeah, but they also the downgraded version. Don't think so. What about when Israel with the Merkava tanks when they attacked Lebanon about 20 years ago? Yeah, my informants tell me there's about 48 of them were shot out. Not all destroyed, but penetrated. Yeah, they got shot out. Do you know that also during the Iraq War, the second one, entire battalion of Apache attack helicopters were ambushed? Yeah, they had to withdraw after they were shot to pieces. They struggled to even get back. Yeah, you don't read about these things, do you? You have to read the James A books to find out. And then we had to find out that even the US Marines, and they're a strange breed, because even if you speak to a US Marine 20 years, 50 years after he's been a Marine, he would say to yourself, I am a Marine. He's still a Marine. In his head, he's a Marine. And they're overweight. They're fat. 1/3 of them are overweight. And the rest of the US Army, about half. Yeah, half of them are running to obese. It's not good. It's not good enough, guys. It's not good enough. And then you added the woke things into it. Oh, shame. What the hell are you people doing? I don't understand this. It was not like this. Something has changed. Something has changed. And it's getting worse because you don't believe yourself. Or actually, you do believe yourselves. That's your problem in life. You believe your own damn propaganda. It is propaganda, and perception will only work if your enemies don't know it. Remember what I said to you about the bully. You're gonna walk up to a guy who's gonna slap the hell out of you. And then you're going to be angry with the entire world because this is unfair. It's not unfair. You were looking for it. You were looking for this nonsense. And then you get angry with people like me who say to you, wake up, there's a problem, sort it out. But you won't. But anyway, you know what? There's an entire chapter on the army myths. I see the video is a bit longer than what I thought it would be, but once we start speaking, we start speaking. And this is not rehearsed, guys. This is speaking out of my heart. Extemporare, as we would say in court. I don't rehearse here. I'm not a damn actor. I'm sitting here and I'm telling you what I've seen and what I think you ought to know, and to also ask you, go and research the books. Don't just take my word. Research. Find out. Anyway, in chapter 5 is about gay spies and what I call in the books the Clinton Whitewash Bureau, which is the actual FBI for you. And I call it blunted daggers. Because what happened? There was a time when only the very best men and women were recruited to Western intelligence. But that time is gone a long time ago. Long time ago. And in the beginning of the 90s, which is now 50 years ago, the good men left. The Cold War was over. And they went on retirement, they went to other things, and they left. And then the woke liberals arrived. And of course, the woke liberals brought their gay and lesbian mates with them, and the next moment it's, MI6 is very proud to be the best employer of gays and lesbians in the entire UK. I've nothing against gays and lesbians. I don't care. I judge according to, or look at you according to the Bible alone. But I don't care what you do in your bedroom. It's not my concern. But it becomes my concern when I operate in Africa like I did. And I see you two walking hand in hand there down the street. And I see all the terrorists, the jihadis, the mates of mine, because they don't see me as the enemy. And they look at each other and say, what about those degenerate Satan children? They have all these horrible things they say about you. Does that help you in your intelligence gathering? No, it doesn't. It's not to say that you are a bad operator. It's not to say that you are a bad analyst. It's not to say you're a bad agent. Not at all. You can be very good, but please remember something, which is woke and acceptable in the US and in the West is not acceptable in the rest of the world where you have to go and operate. It is not. So there's no use for you to go and flaunt it. It doesn't help your cause. That's my message to you. Whether you're inclined in that way or not is your problem. I don't care. It's not my thing. I don't care. Why would I? You're nothing to me. But the fact is, that's how these agencies has now become. Totally politicized. And I mention all the political nonsense which comes out. It's in the books as well. I don't even have to give you all the details here. Because everything will come out at some stage. And then you talk about the leaks, which is every 5 minutes there's a damn leak. Right. So let's talk in the last chapter quickly about special forces and how they abuse. I have not seen a single US general, a NATO general, who can tell me what special forces should be used for. They don't know. They have no clue. And so they are used for all sorts of crap and nonsense which they are not even very good at. And their standards are low. Why do I say their standards are low? Well, look at the facts and the figures. Green Berets, British SAS, they were, I include Australian, whatever, who, by the way, Australia, found guilty of war crimes. Australian Prime Minister had to apologize to the Afghanistan people. Yeah. Think we forgot about that? No. We know. And what is more is the terrorists. What did I explain to you in other books in this one as well? The moment you go out and kill the wrong person, the survivors of that person, even he, let's say he's not completely dead, and he survives you somehow, what do you think he's going to do? He's going to pick up a rifle and he's going to kill you. But he can't kill you. There's going to be some innocent American or Australian or something walking down, let's say in Mali, and the next moment you're all in a disco. This happened. Yeah. Boom! There goes a bomb. 80 of you dead. Why did that happen? Why don't they like us? We're such nice people. No, you're right. No, you're right. And you can say to me that, no, it wasn't me. It wasn't me. These people operate in uniform. And on the uniform, they have a flag of your country. Your country. And the terrorist sees that. And he's not the smartest person in the world. He's many times a humble man. He's a simple man. He's not stupid. But he's not going to think about like a professor, like you might think, but I'm actually on the liberal side. I don't agree with the things here. But the government, no, he doesn't think like that. He's like practical, man. Yes, a guy killing my auntie or my mom or whatever and raping my sister. Yeah, that happened. We'll talk about Voices, War Crimes USA. Yeah, we're going to talk about that. You'll be shocked. And why did I write that book? Because 1 out of every 3 US service women in West Point, your premier military academy, will be raped or sexually abused. Huh? Don't know that either, do you? Well, I write books about it. Where did I get the information? Some of your professors actually wrote books where they came out of this. And then there's all the other stories of closed coffins of women who's been deployed somewhere, coming back in closed coffins, and they're not allowed to open the coffins. There's about 15 of them who committed suicide or died in mysterious circumstances, which in any other theater or any other place in the world would have just a complete police investigation on the manner how they died. If you can't even not rape your own woman, what the hell are you going to do with people who's not in your own uniform? How the hell can you even rape your own people? I don't, guys, what's wrong with you? I don't get this. But anyway, that happens. Special forces. Let's talk about you. In Africa, CIA can't supply you with information, right? These are facts. Read the books. And what happens? Well, you're going to be spies now. Yeah, you're not trained to it. You don't know how to do it. You don't fit in. You don't speak the languages. But you're going to be the spy now. You're going to recruit people now. And then you're going to pay them. They're going to give you information about the terrorists. And man, we're going to attack them. Oh. So I understand that the special forces then actually killed each other. 2 of them attacked another guy. I think 2 SEALs attacked a Green Beret. And they killed him. Yeah, they killed him. And then afterwards, the cover-up, they said something like, no, it was just, they were just playing around a bit and, it went too far. It wasn't meant. But we know that he was reporting the money which you assholes were stealing to use on women and I don't know what else. Probably little boys. I don't know. Using that informant money for yourself, for your own purposes. Yeah, that happened. Go and research it a bit. It's in the books. But the bigger question which is never asked is, now where was the CIA? Where were the defense intelligence agencies? Where were your 16 intelligence agencies that you had to come to Africa, sub-Saharan Africa? You're fighting terrorists now. Okay, let me roll my eyes, because since you started to do it, terrorism has increased 20-fold. Huh? How did that happen? Because drone strikes, wrong people killed. Yeah, that's what happened. That's what happened. You're not good at this. You're pathetic. Really, don't get angry with me, but I look at it from a different view on you. You're really not good. We identified every single one of you. We know exactly where's your bases. We know when you actually get new people in and you go back to the States to get another medal for nothing. We know this. Those people working in your kitchens, those people there in the garden, they report to us. Yeah, we know. We know. When your drones take off, we know. Yeah. We know everything about you. But anyway, it's amazing. Where were your intelligence agencies? Why did you need to go out and get this information? Well, why were you trying to play the spy? It's not your job to do that. Where's your intelligence officers? Because you don't have any. That's your problem. You know why you don't have any? Because your operatives, your CIA agents and the rest of them, they don't work. They go to the local counter-espionage people and they say, can you come to us? We will give you a visa to the US, to Florida. We will sponsor your children. They will go to a US university. Yes. And then you give them, and then they will give you information. Now, we know exactly which generals and politicians and those. We know exactly whose children is studying in the US and in the Western Europe. Do you think we're stupid? Do you think we cannot then think, okay, why? Okay, here's the pattern. Okay, we understand now. And then you're being fed mushrooms, kept in the dark and eating mushrooms, which is actually shite. Hmm? Probably not. I actually like mushrooms. But the point that I'm trying to make to you guys is you don't do your job. You don't go out and spy. You rely completely on signal intelligence and you rely on your websites, meaning that you've got it nicely set up by people inside you who's actually reporting to the Indian Secret Services. And then you, except this Jahidi who wants to actually, Jihadi wants to help you. No, he's going to type a nice message to you. He's going to contact you by email, blah, blah, blah. Before Edward Snowden actually, go and read Codename Udate. Before Edward Snowden actually did his nonsense, quite a few things happened. In the first place, I had to find out that Al Qaeda was communicating through spam mail. In other words, they were putting code words in, which makes it go into spam mail immediately. And then what happened is the US intelligence and the rest were not checking spam mail. So they got it through. After Snowden revealed their code breaking capacities and capabilities, Al Qaeda immediately upgraded their codes to something else. I think they call it a messenger of Allah or something like that. And this is a few years ago, they probably upgraded again. And yeah, probably a lot of Americans died because of that, because signal intelligence can be manipulated. But you people don't realize that. You don't realize that. It's as I said in another video, you grab, and this is 10 years ago, so I've been out of that world for longer than that. But you grab about 20 million 500-page books every day from somewhere. Then you have in the UK about 200 people. And what do you call yourself? CG, whatever, code, government, school, or code school, or whatever. Yeah, we know about you. And the NSA, no such agency. Yeah, we know about you. Ours too, we know. And then those poor people have to actually go and try and figure out what they've actually intercepted. And to do that, they run software through it. It's just a basic crawler. It just scans certain code words like quiz and Oath of Evil or whatever book or whatever. Just link it together, see if you can find a pattern. And then, of course, you miss half the time. 9/11. Did we know about 9/11 is going to take place? Yes. Why? Because in the early 90s, there was actually a previous attempt. An Air France Boeing or something was hijacked. It was supposed to fly either in the French presidency or in the Eiffel Tower. It was the first time that the terrorists ever were saying they're going to use an aircraft as a missile. Of course, this happened before. Do you remember the kamikaze pilots during the war with Japan, with Imperial Japan? Of course, they were not attacking civilian targets, not the same thing, but the same idea in the sense of an aircraft being used as a missile. So history did repeat. It never happened because the French pilots actually convinced the Easters that they were out of fuel. They landed, I think, at Marseilles, and their French Special Forces stormed them. And if you look at that series I made on hostage survival, and if you ever read Codename Wrangler, you will see we talk a lot about that incident because that was the first time that we knew that there might be something like that being planned. And we warned you. But, no, you would rather go to a gay nightclub and actually work. Where you drop a pistol and you shoot somebody on the dance floor. Oh, man. I always ask people, I say to you, when last did you hear about South Africa or even, it's like another country, Russia? When last did you hear about one of their agents being caught by having a prostitute in Colombia or someplace, and then they don't even want to pay the poor woman? And then the police gets involved and it becomes a huge story. When last did you hear that happening? Let me think. Never. Never happened. Never. But it happens with you people all the time. Why is that? Perhaps your standards are too low. Perhaps you should get better people. Perhaps you should start listening to us who's sitting on the side with your friends, who's concerned. Because I can joke with you, I can even insult you, I can do whatever I want, but, it doesn't take away the truth. And what is more, your enemies, your real enemies, they know this too. And they're looking at you with contempt, but not the same contempt which you have. You have contempt in the sense that you're better than anybody else. You're just going to arrive in theater and everybody's going to bow down to you because you're used to that. There was a time when it was like that. That time is gone. The contempt I'm talking about here is a sad contempt. It's one like, man, what happened to you people? You just don't have the standards. It's as I said to you, your Western Special Forces have a dropout selection rate of about 64%. The Navy SEALs, the US Navy SEALs, is about 80%. The South African ones are never under 94%, 95%. We spoke to some of them on legacy conversations where only one person out of everybody who tried actually made it. And there were times where not a single one made it. Huh? So what's going to happen? Let me explain to you. Let's say there's an objective. Like my old instructor said to me, when the whistle blows, laddie, you've got to be there. If you're not there, the attack cannot go in. So you've got to be there. Doesn't matter what. So guess now what happens. Let me explain to you what happens. You have 10, let's say, South Africans there, and you have 10 Brits, you have 10 Frenchmen, and I love the French military, I think they're great. And you have your 10 Yanks, all fat and holding hands. No, I'm just joking. Just joking. And, right, you're going to move to that objective now. But all the South Africans is going to be there, all 10 of them. But sadly for you, only about 6 of you, let's say 7, I'm being kind, is going to be there at the objective. Why? Because the other 3 which you put through because you have low standards, they're going to fail you. And then people are going to die. And these men will have to live with themselves because they know deep down they're not as good as they should be. Guys, you can never increase your unit size, and you can never tell me that you have about 50,000 Special Forces trained people because it's simply not possible mathematically speaking. The type of people who has the mental capacity, the DNA, and the physical capacity to do that type of work in special forces are less than 1% of your entire population. Therefore, it's not possible for you to have it. I also speak about Chinese special forces in my books, as well as this one, as well as the latest book I wrote just 2-3 days ago, codenamed Snake 606, where we go into great detail, and I'll leave you with that thought. There's a lot of special forces competitions going on in the world. Guys meet up and they shoot and they blow things up and they parachute and they do these things. They meet each other. It's all a bullshit game to see if they can get each other recruited to their side and to watch them, see how they operate and blah, blah, blah. Chinese special forces mostly come first in almost everything. And where they don't come first, the next year they come first. Why? Because they look at themselves and they say, we need to improve. This is not good enough. We need to improve. Next year they come, they win every damn competition there is. Now, okay, what you're going to say to me now is, yeah, but Chris, I don't have practical experience, man. We practical, man. We don't have time for competition. We actually go and do the job. Well, you do a very shit job. Your history in counterterrorism is pathetic. I've given you many, many examples, and there's many examples in this book as well. And if you think the Chinese special forces don't have any operational experience, man, come to sub-Saharan Africa. You'll be flipping surprised what you'll find here. I reveal one of such operations in the latest book, of many, 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 which I know about. So yeah, they do have actually practical experience, but not the way you do, because you cannot operate in a hostile country. When you were created, you were supposed to go into Eastern Europe behind enemy lines, genuine enemy lines. You were supposed to be left behind troops where the Soviet tanks and things will run over you. You stay behind. You start doing the sabotage thing and things like that. You can't do that anymore. Why not? Because you always have to be rescued. When you went into the rescue of Bin Laden, or to kill him rather, not rescue, guess what? There were about 1,500 to 3,000 US Marines waiting to rescue you. Yeah? And you went in Pakistan, which is a country you control. And even then you couldn't do a proper job. You're not to be found in countries where you don't have control or where you have at least sympathy. You're nowhere. Nowhere. If you operate in Syria or wherever you do in the old days, you always have a Mossad or Israeli agent with you to assist you. You don't speak the languages. Once again, you're not good enough. But anyway, guys, that's the book. I'm sorry I spoke a bit longer than what I should have. You can see it's substantial. It's really a book which is supposed to warn. It's a book which will annoy a lot of people, as I'm sure I did now too. Apologize for that. It's not meant to be, but for me, when you warn and warn, and people will not listen to you simply because you're from Africa or they don't think you are worth listening to, even though you've got all the facts, then sometimes you have to speak straight. You have to speak to each other. So once again, this book is available on Amazon. It is in softcover, it's in audio, it's in Kindle. Please read it if you want to. Please spread the word. Thank you for listening to me now. And God bless until we meet again.